I'm Master Police Officer Scott Gillespie. I'm with Castle Rock Police Department, currently assigned as a school resource officer to Castle View High School. I actually went from being a canine handler and a narcotics investigator on the street to a gang-ridden, drug-ridden school within the agency I was working in California. So I got into the schools feeling like I could get ahead of the problem and start preventing things that I was seeing on the street. So I jumped in at a high school level and started kind of mentoring and helping people to steer clear of some of the bigger problems. So when you think of a patrol officer, we would measure their productivity in the number of calls they take, maybe the level of arrests that they accomplish, the quality of their investigations, maybe even like how long somebody goes to prison for a terrible thing. Those would be like success margins. In the SRO world, we're measuring that in positive community interactions. It's a total flip of the script. So I'm taking the law enforcement perspective, and I do investigations, and I do have some arrests, but those are not the highlights of the job. The highlights of the job is I get to be an informal counselor and mentor to these students. I get to educate them in things of law enforcement, how to avoid some of the problems and stay out of the juvenile justice system. And then I become a safety component for the campuses. So I'm the responder for things like school shootings or threats that come into the school, even like our parking lot driving, which is pretty disastrous. I become the coach for the driving stuff to try to keep people from crashing into each other. Well, I think one of the big ones as it relates to ForceMetrics is a lot of the stuff that hits our campuses are things that spill over from things that happen on the weekends or the nights when I'm not on duty. So I work day shift, midday in a school all day. But a lot of times the stuff that comes into the school happened in the home over the weekend or happened at a party after the football game or happened at the mall where somebody stole something. And that information is hard to come by unless you have officers that are willing to contact you or even ask their suspect or their victim where they go to school and take that extra step of getting a hold of them. So that's a big challenge for us right now. Using ForceMetrics, one of the things I'm able to do is if I have a problem with a kid, I can type it through the system and it gives me a report on everything that's happened in our surrounding area related to that name or that vehicle or that household. So it's actually been a really good tool for overcoming some of that feedback that we need. For Safe to Tell, it's a program that's an anonymous reporting program on crime. So one of the things that it does, it provides a platform through text message, phone call, or there's an online application as well. It allows people to report things they're concerned about. Crime or not, it comes through to me. So a lot of times what we'll get is just a name and a bare bones report on what it is that's coming through. A lot of times, every time we don't know who reported it, so it's anonymous. I can't even subpoena that information for court. It's protected by our Attorney General. So we struggle to try to piece together some of the things that are going on in the community through these anonymous reporting systems. ForceMetrics helps us to kind of streamline that because if I have a name, I get all of the history associated with that name. Or if I have a household, I get all of the history. I know if law enforcement's been out there for a barking dog complaint. And I know if they've been out there because the dad shot the mom. Like I get all of that information across the board. So a lot of times the Safe to Tell system will report things like a threat to the campus. So they'll tell us they think a student has access to guns, or sometimes we'll get like a picture of a social media post where they say this person posted this thing, it says don't come to school tomorrow, and it's a guy with a gun. And so one of the things that we struggle with is we'll be able to track down through some of our systems who the person was, but a lot of times we don't have the history of how we got to that point. So we launch into a thing known as a threat assessment protocol. And one of the things that we're doing in a threat assessment protocol is we're pulling all of the information associated with mom, dad, student, household, relatives to try to get the whole picture of what's taking place. Because sometimes it's in the home, but sometimes it's the aunt or uncle's house, or sometimes it's in a car. And so ForceMetrics has allowed us to see that across agencies and be able to pull all of our data to bring that in. There's been a few different things lately where the kid is split between households, and the household will be outside of our jurisdiction, and we'll actually end up spilling over into like a search of that household. But in order to get the information we need about that house before we go there, we can utilize the ForceMetrics system to pull that information and build our case on that other side in the other jurisdiction. So it's limited the time that we need to make a phone call to their dispatch and get a hold of the detective in charge and be able to get them to forward or fax an old email to us about what the reports actually are. It brings all that data in real time and organizes in a way that I can utilize. One of the biggest hurdles you've helped us overcome is law enforcement definitely loves to help each other. And so it wasn't that the information wasn't out there or that I couldn't get access to it. The problem was I couldn't get access to it in real time. And so I had to jump through 5 or 6 other hoops to actually get that information under previous softwares or previous information. Everybody had their own report writing system, their own filing system, and then a lot of times if I didn't have a case number that was associated with that system, they didn't have a way to access the thing that I was looking for. And so now what I'm able to do is when I type in a name, I can pull up the case immediate in real time and read the narrative associated with that case. So the information I'm looking for is at my fingertips right now. I have an administrator who's dealing with all kinds of safety issues on our campus right now that'll come to me and he says, hey, can I use your super secret cop phone to type in something? And what he's referring to is ForceMetrics, because anytime he needs information on a safety component, I can tell him whether or not it's there and with relative confidence whether it even exists, because of how well networked it is. We've got a reputation with my school administrators now. I would say I use it most. Boy, if it's not daily, it's pretty close. We have some days that are slower. Most of our days we've got something going on where we're trying to pull information to make a decision or to build a safety plan or to respond to an incident. So I'll just get a hint of it. I'll get a name or I'll get an email from our victim's advocate and I'll need more information. And that's my go-to every time. So for my position specifically, because I'm not working on a patrol squad, I don't have the benefit of daily briefings for updates on information that's going on in our community. We work really hard to get that information out, but even the information that I do get is very limited in scope. So for our SROs, kind of like I was saying, most of the stuff that happens outside of the school spills over at some point onto campus. So I feel like utilizing this as a tool set lets your officers be more informed in how they respond to certain things with their students. And that could be anything from like a felony domestic violence case that you took the night before where the student was present. And then they show up to school the next day and they get in trouble and they're in the office for cussing a teacher out. If you run that name really fast across ForceMetrics, it will tell you that there was a felony domestic in their home and give you the context for it. And now you have something to talk about to build rapport with that student and to advocate for them with your administration. The student doesn't have all of its faculties right now because his dad's going to jail. And so you might need to treat that a little more sensitively. So it matters for that. It also matters for things like suicides. So when we've had students that have killed themselves in the community, that spills over to all of their peers and all of their friends. And so knowing the impact of that, you're able to run the name real fast and get a feel for who it was that's associated with that person, with that household, with that car, and know where your immediate impacts are going to be associated with that student. So I guess my encouragement would be just kind of embrace the AI, man. This is the future. The way it comes out organized, you can sync what it is you're looking for into a really specific category and pull the information that's useful and not just get a data dump of everything that's not useful. So come here, you. She's like, Dad, I'm tired. I'm old and I'm tired. Well, Buttercup was the first school resource officer therapy dog in the state of Colorado it's been 5 years now. But we launched this program in the schools because we were seeing a gap specifically in the area of mental health. All of our de-escalation training and CIT stuff was limited in its effectiveness, and we were seeing a trend where when you bring a therapy dog in, it overcomes and fills a lot of those gaps. These dogs have been a phenomenal innovation for us. We refer to them as a mental health magic wand. Anything associated with dysregulation, anger, suicidality, these dogs bridge the gap on that and provide an opportunity for a conversation where we can provide resources and actually gain access. As much as my tactical gear helps me in responding to violence, this does very little for me preventing it. It actually creates a barrier with my more high-risk students where they don't feel comfortable talking with me, a lot of them that have experienced cops before. When you bring the dogs into play on that, they don't have that same issue. The dogs actually break down barriers and provide a sense of comfort and belonging for a lot of our more high-risk students. So they are wonderful.